I was putting on my shoes and getting ready to leave the house. I felt light that evening, almost happy, because I hadn't visited my son in a while. He had invited me for dinner, and he sounded excited on the phone earlier. I even bought his favorite bread on my way home, planning to take it with me. Everything in my mind was calm, until my phone rang. It was Mr. Coleman, my lawyer. He never called me at that time of the day. He usually sent messages first. So when his name appeared on the screen, I stopped tying my laces. When I answered, his voice was sharp. I frowned. "Not now," I said. "I'm going to my son's for dinner. Can it wait?" "It concerns him," he replied quickly. "Take a look at what I just sent you." And that sentence made my hands freeze. I heard myself whisper, "What happened?" "I cannot explain it on the phone," he said. "Just open the file. I'm afraid you need to see it before you go anywhere." I stood still in my hallway for a few seconds. The walls felt closer. The house suddenly became too quiet. I slowly unlocked my phone and opened the message he sent. There was a single document. No title, no note, just a file. I tapped it. My heartbeat went from normal to something strange and tight. The first page alone made my stomach twist. I didn't understand everything immediately, but I understood enough. My son had been hiding something from me. Something big. Something serious. The words on the page looked heavy: numbers, messages, agreements, and a name I had never seen before. My son's name appeared beside things that made no sense to me. Things he never talked about. Things I never imagined he would be connected to. My first thought was simple. This can't be right. My second thought came louder. Why didn't he tell me? I scrolled slowly, almost afraid of what I would see next. Every new line made my jaw tighten. I sat down on the nearest chair, because I felt like my legs would give up if I kept standing. I tried to remember our last conversation. He sounded normal. He laughed a little. He said he was making pasta for dinner. He never sounded like someone dealing with something this serious. My head felt full. My chest felt heavy. I kept staring at the words, trying to understand them. I didn't want to panic, but I could not pretend everything was fine either. I called my lawyer back. "Where did this come from?" I asked quietly. "I will explain everything," he said. "But you need to prepare yourself. There is more behind it." I closed my eyes for a moment. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. I was just confused, worried, surprised in a way I wasn't ready for. I looked at the bread I bought for my son. A simple gift for a simple dinner. And then, I looked at the document again. 2 different worlds, sitting in my hands. And in that moment, without rushing, without moving, I realized one thing clearly. My son had been planning something I never knew about. A few days before my lawyer's call, I remembered noticing small things about my son that didn't make sense at the time. Back then, I told myself he was just busy or tired. Now, those moments felt different. They felt like quiet warnings I did not understand. The last time I visited him, he opened the door with a smile. But it wasn't the kind of smile that reached the eyes. His shoulders looked tense, and he kept glancing at his phone. I thought he was waiting for a message from work or from a friend. I never imagined it was something heavier. At one point, he dropped a glass while reaching for water. He laughed softly, like it was nothing, but his hands shook when he picked it up. I helped him sweep the pieces, and he said, "I just didn't sleep well." I believed him because he had always been the kind of boy who didn't complain. Another day, he came to my house to fix a light. Normally, he talked a lot while doing small tasks, telling stories from school, sharing jokes, but that day, he barely said a word. He kept checking the time. When he finished, he left quickly, saying he had something important to do. He also started canceling our usual Sunday breakfasts. We never missed them. They were our small tradition. But for 3 weeks straight, he found a reason not to come. "I'll make it up to you," he said each time. I felt a little hurt, but I told myself he was growing up and becoming busy. I didn't want to make him feel guilty. There was also a short message he sent 3 nights before the dinner invitation. "Dad, if anything happens, I just want you to know I'm grateful." I called him right away to ask what he meant, but he said he was just tired and thinking too much. He changed the topic quickly. Looking back, every detail seemed connected: his shaking hands, his tired eyes, his sudden silence. But at that time, I didn't see the pattern. I trusted that he would tell me if something was wrong. And so, the days passed quietly, with me believing everything was fine, never knowing that my son was carrying a weight he didn't want anyone to notice. The day after the shocking file, I sat alone in my living room, thinking about the signs I had missed. I wanted to understand how my son ended up in a situation he never spoke about. I decided to go to his apartment to see things with my own eyes. I hoped that maybe something there would help me understand what he had been dealing with. When I entered his place, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it felt. Nothing looked broken or disturbed, but the room didn't feel calm either. It felt like someone who had been struggling lived there. On the table were notebooks filled with short notes, numbers, reminders, and small sentences that looked like he wrote them quickly. Some were crossed out. Some were unfinished. None of them explained anything clearly, but they showed he had been trying to solve something alone. I opened a drawer near his bed and found old letters. Most of them were simple, but one stood out. It had no name on it, just a message written in rushed handwriting. "Stop delaying. You know what you promised." I didn't know who wrote it or what it meant, but it didn't sound friendly. I stared at the paper for a long time. My son never told me he owed anyone anything. He never mentioned any promise. He lived a simple life. He worked, he saved, he minded his own business. But that letter hinted at something heavier. I checked his messages on a small notepad he kept near his desk. There were numbers that looked like amounts, but they weren't clear. Another note had a single name, one I didn't recognize. It wasn't a common name, and I had never heard him say it before. The more I looked around, the more it felt like Ethan had been hiding a whole side of his life. I sat on his bed and looked around the room again. There were signs of stress everywhere. Half-finished meals, clothes not folded, a calendar with several days marked but no explanations written. It was clear he had been trying to handle something difficult, something he didn't want to share with me or anyone else. As I stood up to leave, I realized something simple but painful. My son wasn't just tired or busy, he had been scared. And whatever he was dealing with, he chose to face it alone. After seeing my son's apartment, I knew I couldn't just wait. I had to understand the full story. Something serious was happening, and Ethan had kept it all from me. I remembered the file my lawyer sent. The letters, the notes, and the strange numbers. Everything was connected, and I needed to follow the trail myself. I started by visiting the few people I knew who had seen Ethan recently. First was his neighbor, an older woman who had watched him come and go from the apartment. She noticed he looked anxious almost every day. "He never seemed like himself," she said. "He always looked like he was running from something. Or someone." Her words confirmed what I had already suspected. My son was hiding danger, not just stress. Next, I visited a small cafe he liked. The barista remembered seeing him often sitting in the corner, typing on his laptop and glancing over his shoulder. He was always watching around him, she said. Sometimes he even left quickly, like he was avoiding someone. I thanked her quietly. Each little piece I discovered made my stomach tighten. I was starting to see the edges of the problem, but the picture was still incomplete. Back at my house, I spread all the documents, notes, and letters on the table. I matched names, numbers, and dates. Slowly, a pattern started to emerge. Ethan had been dealing with someone powerful, someone who could make life difficult if promises were broken. And that unknown name I saw in his notes, it appeared repeatedly in messages and numbers. My heart sank. I realized he had been planning something risky to solve this problem. I called Mr. Coleman again. "I've seen some of it," I said. "But I need guidance. What should I do next?" "Be careful," he warned. "You are stepping into a situation Ethan tried to avoid. But you also have the chance to help him before it gets worse. Follow the trail slowly, and do not confront anyone directly yet." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I decided to check the areas Ethan had visited in the past few weeks. I drove to streets near his apartment, small stores, and even the quiet park where he sometimes went to think. Everywhere I went, I noticed subtle signs someone else had been there recently. Small changes. New faces that seemed too attentive. For the first time, I felt the weight of being a father in a real danger-filled world. Ethan had been trying to carry this alone, but now I had to step in. I promised myself that I would protect him, no matter what. I could feel the danger growing closer, but I also felt a new determination rising in me. By the time I returned home, I had pieced together part of the story. I still didn't know everything, but I knew enough to understand my son's fear. He wasn't reckless or careless. He had been trapped in a situation he didn't want me to see. And now, I had to find the rest of the truth before it was too late. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, looking over every note, every message, and every piece of information I had collected. The weight of the past few days pressed heavily on me. I had followed the trail of clues, checked every place my son had visited, and pieced together fragments of his hidden life. Now, I had to understand the full truth. I called Mr. Coleman one last time. "I think I see it all now," I said quietly. "But I need to confirm everything." "Then go to him," he advised. "Face it together. He's been waiting for someone to understand." I drove to Ethan's apartment with a mixture of fear and hope. When I knocked, he opened the door slowly. His face looked tense, but there was also relief in his eyes when he saw me. I didn't say a word. I might have stalked it. Let's stalked it. I might backed it. I simply handed him the collection of notes and messages I had gathered. He looked down at them, his shoulders sagging. Then he took a deep breath and began to explain. The letters, the numbers, and the unknown name all made sense now. Ethan had been involved in a financial situation he never wanted me to know about. Someone had pressured him to make decisions that could have cost him everything. His job, his savings, even his safety. He had been trying to solve it alone because he didn't want to worry me or put me in danger. "I thought I could fix it by myself," he said quietly. "I didn't want you to see me struggle. I didn't want you to think less of me." His voice cracked slightly, and I could feel the tension he had carried for weeks, finally leaving him in small bursts. I reached out and held his hand. "You are my son," I said firmly. "Nothing can make me think less of you. We solve problems together. You were brave, but you don't have to be alone." He nodded, and for the first time in days, I saw his shoulders relax. The unknown man who had caused the pressure turned out to be someone Ethan had tried to negotiate with carefully, without escalating conflict. By the time I arrived, most of the immediate danger had been avoided, but the lessons of secrecy and fear were clear. We spent hours talking. Ethan explained each decision, each risk he had taken, and why he thought hiding it from me was the only way. I told him that trust didn't mean avoiding problems alone, it meant letting others share the weight when needed. By the evening, the tension had shifted into understanding. I realized how much my son had grown, how much courage he had, and also how much he needed support. Our relationship, which had quietly drifted with misunderstandings, began to rebuild that day. I promised myself I would never let fear or pride come between us again. As I left his apartment that night, I looked at the small bread I had bought a few days ago for dinner, still in my bag. It felt symbolic now, a simple gesture, a reminder that care and love could exist even in the midst of fear and secrecy. That night, I finally understood the truth my lawyer had warned me about. My son had wanted help, but he had also wanted to protect me. And in that simple, difficult, and quiet way, he had reminded me what being a parent really meant. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting stories.